So in today's quick video, I wanted to do a quick one going over the metrics that actually matter when it comes to generating leads for local businesses. So these are, in my opinion, some of the most important metrics that you should be focusing on for your business if you're going to be running Google Ads. I've heard a lot of people over the years talk to me about, I guess you could say, very vanity metrics in a way, things that don't really impact the end goal of a campaign for your business. So I wanted to talk about those metrics, go over them really quickly and what they mean. So if you're new here, my name is Chris. I cover all things Google Ads and local lead generation. If you want to see more content like this, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let's jump into this campaign and I'll walk you through some of the metrics that I think really matter for local businesses. So to give a little bit of background quickly, the reason why I wanted to make this video is because, like I mentioned before, I have had a lot of discussions, a lot of conversations with people over the years, and a lot of times I find that they focus on things that do not ultimately matter to their business. Because at the end of the day, if you're running Google Ads for your local business, you want to generate leads, you want to generate phone calls, you want to generate things that actually lead to revenue for your business. And a lot of the times people come to me and they're talking about how cheap their cost per click is. And when they see the cost per click go up, they kind of start to freak out. And that is one thing that on the surface level, a cheaper cost per click sounds amazing. But at the end of the day, we want to generate leads. Clicks are great. I can get cheap clicks all day long, but the traffic that comes from those clicks is probably going to be really irrelevant. So if you're really focused and hyper-focused on cost per click, you're missing out on everything else that's going on here. And you're actually just kind of taking your focus away from the metrics that actually matter. So I wanted to cover that first because it's something that I hear a ton with Google Ads, that people are very hyper-focused and obsessed with cost per click. And at the end of the day, like I said, cost per click does matter. It is important for your business. It's important for your campaign. You want to get the cheapest cost per click possible, but if you lose sight of everything else and you're only focused on cost per click, you're missing out on the most important parts of a campaign. So the first thing I wanted to talk about with this campaign right here, and the thing that I find to be, I guess it's sort of tied 1 and 2 of like what I think are the two most important things on a campaign. You have conversion rate and you have cost per lead. So you can see on this campaign right here, the conversion rate is sitting at about 32% and the cost per conversion or cost per lead is sitting at about 24%. So cost per lead I'll cover first because I think that's the most straightforward. Well, I guess in this case it's cost per conversion, but cost per conversion essentially means you set up conversion tracking on your campaign, and the cost per conversion means the cost per whatever action you want somebody to take. On this particular campaign, we're tracking phone calls and we're tracking form fills. So what this number means is it's $24 every time somebody places a phone call or they submit a form on the landing pages. So this, I guess I would probably put number 1 on the list of this is the most important thing you want to focus on with your Google Ads campaign. If you want to generate more leads for your local business, the most important thing you want to focus on is the cost per conversion on your campaign. Now, obviously there is some nuance here. We want to make sure that those conversions and those leads are actually quality, because you can get conversions and things like that, but they could just be low quality or irrelevant. So obviously with the whole, caveat of, as long as they're quality, the first thing you want to focus on is that cost per lead, because like I said, you want to have leads coming from your campaign. Cheap cost per click is great, but if those cheap clicks are not leading to any leads or revenue for your business, then it's just sort of an irrelevant metric. So the first thing you want to be looking at is your cost per lead on your campaign. It's the most important thing. And the second thing you want to focus on here is your conversion rate. So the conversion rate is going to directly influence your cost per lead. So the conversion rate is the number of clicks that turn into a lead or convert, whatever your conversion action is, whether it's phone calls, form fills, booked appointments, whatever. The conversion rate is the number of clicks it takes to actually convert. So in this case, it's 32%. So out of every 100 clicks on this campaign, 32 of those clicks become a lead. So on your campaign for local lead generation, my goal for a lot of industries, so I want to try to be at least 20% conversion rate. It's going to vary industry to industry. Some are going to be higher, some are going to be lower. So if you're in more of an emergency type industry, conversion rate is probably going to be higher. Whereas if it's a kind of more project-based, custom work kind of a thing, sometimes it can be lower. It really varies by industry. But on my end, what I really try to do is get at least like a 20% conversion rate. That's going to help you just really cut down that cost per lead. And the reason why conversion rate is so powerful, like I just said, is the more clicks that you turn into leads, the cheaper your cost per lead is going to be. the cheaper the cost per lead is going to be, the more leads you're going to get. That's going to make your campaign more and more profitable. So again, going back to my little mini rant at the beginning talking about cost per click, you can get cheap clicks all day long. You can, get lower cost per click and bid on more broad traffic and everything like that. But if that conversion rate is too low, your cost per lead is going to be too high. And if the cost per lead is going to be too high, then your campaign's just not going to be profitable. So the two most important things, cost per lead, conversion rate, that just kind of supersedes everything else on your campaign. And then we'll talk about a few more things right now. So the next thing I want to talk about is click-through rate. So click-through rate is kind of similar to conversion rate in the way that it's kind of like a percentage of people taking action. The click-through rate is the percentage of people who saw your ad versus who actually clicked on your ad. So you can see you have impressions, you have clicks, and the click-through rate is essentially just, clicks over impressions. So how many people saw the ad versus how many people clicked on it. And in this case, it's about 7-8%. And ultimately what you want your click-through rate to be is at least 5% on your campaign. I would prefer this one to be higher, but sometimes it doesn't really work out like that. I've had campaigns upwards of 14+% in the past. But the reason why click-through rate is really important is this is going to be an indication of how relevant your ads are to the searcher. So you want this number to be as high as possible because if your click-through rate is too low, then that essentially means that the ads you're putting in front of people are not relevant enough. And that's going to be an indication of the kind of a mismatch between your ads and the search traffic, which means you probably have a search traffic issue. But really the click-through rate, like I said, it's going to be an indication of how relevant your ads are. The more relevant your ads are, the higher that click-through rate is going to be. Higher click-through rate is going to help you get cheaper traffic because Google usually rewards that. And it's ultimately going to help you get more traffic to your pages. And assuming you have a good conversion rate and a good cost per lead, that means you're just going to get more leads. And there's a couple other things I wanted to talk about in this video. I could go down the rabbit hole of everything, looking at quality scores and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to keep it high level and what I personally think are the most important things that for your business are going to matter on a Google Ads campaign. And I want to talk about these columns over here. You have search impression share, you have impression share top percent, and then impression share absolute top percent. First metric here, search impression share. Essentially what this means is out of all of the potential searches for your keywords and locations, like kind of the total pool of searches you could show up for, what percentage are you showing up for? And you can see in this case, we're showing up for like 92% of searches. And it's kind of good that I'm using this campaign as an example because typically if I'm seeing a search impression share of 92%, pretty much what that means is you're kind of like capped in your market. You're showing for as much as you possibly can. And in this case, there's a very good chance that I'm actually overpaying for traffic. But with this campaign, it's kind of a unique situation where we're kind of capped from a location targeting perspective. So in this particular case, I see 92% and I'm like, all right, we can't go any further, but I don't really want to risk not getting enough traffic on the campaign because then the cost, the number of leads coming into the campaign just tanks. So totally different conversation there. But the search impression share, it's really important because, a lot of people are running a campaign and they're just not bidding enough, for example. So if they're running a campaign and I look at the search impression share and it says like under 10% or it's like 20% or something like that, that's an indication that you're probably just not bidding competitively enough in your market, which means your ads are not going to show up for the searches that you want to show up for. And conversely, kind of like with this example right here, if you did want to scale your campaign and you wanted to get more leads out of your Google Ads campaign, search impression share is going to show you how much room you have to go in your particular market. You can see in this case, we just kind of don't really have any more room to go. Like we could pay more for a click, but we're just not going to get anything more. So that's sort of one of those things. It's a good indicator of like, is there room to grow? Or you just kind of capped where you are? You got to look at other avenues in terms of marketing. So if this search impression share was say at 50%, that would give me an indication to say to the client, like, hey, we're at a 50% search impression share. You want to get more leads every month. We could just take our budget from 50 to 75 a day, maybe up to 100, 125. And that theoretically should get us more leads because we have more search impression share, gets us more traffic, gets us more leads. So that's a good indicator there for kind of trying to scale or potentially if your bids are too low. And then the other two things that play into that, you have impression top percent right here and then absolute top percent. These essentially play into search impression share in kind of a similar way. So impression top percent essentially means of the searches that you are showing up for, not out of the total searches, but of the searches that you are showing up for, what percentage of the time are you in the top part of the page? So like the top 2 or 3 ads, what percentage of the time are you right there? And then absolute top percent is what percentage of the time are you the number 1 ad on Google? So this is just one of those things that I use as well to kind of see how competitive are we bidding, where are we showing up on the page. And this is really important because if I see, for example, the absolute top percent number way too high, that is definitely an indicator to me that I'm overpaying for traffic. We're paying too much, and there's just kind of, unless it's sort of something that you want, like you only want to show up number 1 and that's it, and then you're willing to pay for that traffic, then you would totally do that. But in my opinion, if you're just showing up there all the time, like it's 80, 90%, then you're definitely overpaying for that traffic. And it's better to just try to make sure this top percent number is higher because you want your ads to show up further up the page because that's kind of where people are going to take action. But absolute top percent, you don't need this to be like 80, 90% because that's just an indicator, again, like you're probably overpaying for that traffic. But yeah, so that is a quick rundown of what I find to be the most important things that you want to focus on your Google Ads campaign. These are the things that actually matter. They're not just vanity metrics. They're not things that are, not actually going to lead to results. These are the things that are actually going to get you results on your Google Ads campaign. So next time you're looking at your campaign or you're thinking about starting a campaign, try to think further down the funnel. Think about cost per lead, think about conversion rate. Don't think too much about cost per click because the reality with Google Ads is if you want high quality traffic in your local market for some kind of home service type keyword, the cost per click is going to be higher. So you need to keep that in mind, but you need to kind of keep your eyes focused on the things that matter, which is number of leads generated, cost per lead, conversion rate, click-through rate, things that are kind of higher level and really indicate that your campaign is going in the right direction. So that's it for this video. If you want to see more stuff like this, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And if you are a business owner who wants to actually set up a campaign for your business or you already have a campaign running and you don't want to deal with all this, you want somebody to actually handle this, build it, optimize it, run it for you, there's a link in the description below for a free consultation. You can fill it out. I can see if I can help you out. Alternatively, if you are somebody who wants to DIY all of this and take care of it yourself, I'm also going to link over to a free Google Ads course in the description of this video you can check out there. But in the meantime, again, if you got some value out of this, I'd appreciate a like and subscribe. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.